Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Martin Bouchier, who is going to assist the wonderful Alison Meagher, aka Butcher Girl. Alison grew up on a farm in Victoria and has taken a great interest in butchery. She's worked around the world, so she's worked in some places such as Southeast Asia, China, America and the UK, promoting Australian beef, and she is going to do the butchery and Martin is going to do some cooking for her. So our sponsors this afternoon are AMIC, so Australian Meat Industry Council. So on you go, folks.
Here we go. Okay, today I'm demonstrating to you how we can use an oyster blade. So an oyster blade is from the shoulder of the animal. It's under the banjo, so it's under the scapular bone. It is probably the second most tender muscle on the whole animal. First is the tenderloin. So today I'm going to take off all the fat, seam it out. There's a big bit of gristle that runs through the middle. I'm going to remove that and I'm going to make two nice flat iron steaks.
Yum.
So firstly we sharpen our knives, make sure they're sharp. Sharper they are, the easier work is, and cleaner your work is. So I'm removing that top layer of fat. You can also cut this as it is, like into little steaks. A lot of, in Asia, they tend to use this in their barbecue barbecue restaurants or hot pot restaurants. They would just slice it into steaks, grill it on the barbecue quickly. Really yummy. But today, flat irons are something you can also do at home yourself. You could buy a whole oyster blade and you can portion it up yourself and freeze the rest. It would probably be a cheaper alternative. Look, this steak's got just as much flavour as those loin cuts. And it's cheaper.
A much better price point, isn't it?
Much better, yeah, for sure. I think the price of beef has just got really expensive, so we have to start looking at how we can use these cuts. I love working with these cuts. They offer so much versatility, so much more flavour, and so much better on the pocket.
Well, if you're working on a budget, you know, if you're living at home and you're working on a budget, you've got a family of 4 to feed, they're a great thing. You can't give them eye fillet and sirloins and stuff like that at home all the time.
Not the price today. Absolutely.
Using these, it's like a really great way of feeding a family.
Yeah, and I think these should be more presented in the window for people nowadays too, like as an option to take home and buy. I mean, often you don't see this in the window. You see your regular cuts, like your strip loin, your tenderloin. They should be presenting these as well.
I think there's a good awareness coming slowly.
Absolutely.
It's like in the old days, I mean, none of the tertiary cuts were even thought about. They were all turned into burgers and rissoles and,
that's right.
and everything else, wasn't it?
Yeah,
you know?
mince. But goes straight into the mince oven,
What's
not
in
anymore.
the mince? So I don't know, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So last night I did the iconic nose to tail dinner. So I broke down an entire carcass and I demonstrated how you could use all these secondary cuts. It was fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't get in till late, so I missed out on it.
You missed out.
But
yeah, it was definitely a show to remember. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just fleecing this out. I'm finding the seam. It's really quite gristly. Once you find that, you follow it down. I don't know if anyone's ever seen this on a menu before.
We used to use flat irons to do tacos back in the day.
Did you?
And like carne asadas and stuff like that, yeah.
Absolutely beautiful, right? I think it's also, I find it to be a little bit sweeter because it's coming from the forequarter. So it's absolutely beautiful. Here we go. And then we'll get to... There we go. And then you come out with 2 pieces like that. So I'm going to clean this up, and then I'm going to throw it to Martin, and he is going to cook it to a perfect what, Martin?
A perfect eatable standard. I mean, I like my stuff still mooing. I mean, you've got to do this a little bit more on the medium rare, but fast, and then let it rest.
Yeah, exactly.
Like any of these cuts, when you do them, cook them really, really hot. So get your pan smoking hot, like we've got the barbie going at the minute.
Yep.
Get it really, really, really hot. Sear the living daylights out of it, and then let it rest for a fair while, easily 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, you can cover it over with foil, and it's not going to lose that heat. But what happens is, when you imagine if you burn yourself at home and your hand just goes, right, and that's the same as what you're doing with the meat. So it needs time to ease itself back into being. You know, so all those juices are going back into the whole cell structure of the meat. It's the thing that people rush. And another thing, when people go to restaurants, am I not right in this, Alison? Like, people say, oh, my steak's bloody. You know, it's not. It's just it's not been rested properly.
That's right.
You know?
And, yeah, it's that resting process. It's like a sponge, I think.
Yeah.
You let it rest and it soaks it in like a sponge.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we get people coming into the restaurant all the time. It's like, oh, can I have my steak medium well? We have a beautiful eye fillet dish on the menu. And, oh, can we have it medium well? I just go, no. You know, because it's not looking after the meat the way it should be looked after.
Right.
You know, and everybody that comes in, I had a guy came in the other day and said, oh, I only eat my steak well done. Oh, well, try this, and if you don't like it, I'll buy it. And he paid, and he put a $50 tip on, because he said, thank you very much. You know, it's just the resting of the meat is equally as important as cooking it.
So I'm going to cut this into some nice little steaks. Is everyone going to try this? Yeah?
We might get a few. Yeah, we got a few up here. I know these volunteers, these are like seagulls. You know, you give them a chip and they're in. Boom.
All right, as you can see, there's a fair bit of wastage to this cut, but you can use that in your burgers at home if you have a mincer. It's probably worth buying a mincer these days at home, and just using it up that way. All right, let's start with those two, Martin.
So
nice bit of salt.
Let's grab a bowl.
Okay.
I'm gonna put it in because I've got nothing on there. So, yep, just a bit of simple. There's no point messing around with good quality meat. Simple salt, pepper.
Exactly.
You know, you go to places and I need a pepper sauce. I need a mushroom sauce, and if it's good meat, you don't need to.
You don't need nothing.
You know, so plenty of salt, because the salt is like the lifeblood. You know, it doesn't need any oil because there's so much fat and stuff in there. A little bit of pepper on the outside. And all we're going to do with that is literally on the barbie. So I do this on a Sunday arvo. Listen to me, I'm getting all Australian now. That's come all the way from England to learn Australian.
Whereabouts in England are you from?
Cheshire.
Cheshire.
So yeah, born and raised in Cheshire. It's a beautiful dairy country over there.
Wow.
It's gorgeous cattle. We used to, my favourite cow to eat was a Guernsey. And I was talking to a guy from Meatworks, I think it was, yesterday on the plane. And I'm saying, like, I love Guernsey cattle to eat. And he goes, but it's a dairy cow. But just, if you get the opportunity of trying it, it is so, so beautiful and tasty.
What's its flavour like? Is it quite different, or?
It's similar. It's a little bit sweeter.
Yeah.
A little bit sweeter. It's obviously nowhere near as big.
No.
You know, when you're getting these Guernseys and Angus and what do we have up our way? Brahmans and Senepols. Senepol, about similar sort of size to a Senepol.
Okay.
Really. You know, we were looking at some sort of 2-year-old heifers the other day at one of the farms that supplies me. And they're just beautiful, beautiful cattle. You know, nice browny coloured skin, big floppy ears, little bit of a hump on the back. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous beasts. And
nice
I'm thinking
temperament.
marrowbone, flank steak, eye fillet.
Oh, the good cuts.
Jus. The jus, using the neck bones to make the jus.
The what? The neck bones?
Yeah.
Yeah, yep, best flavour, right?
So we make a jus at work. It takes us literally a week.
All right, that's coming along nicely.
I think the other thing when you're cooking your meat as well, to make sure all the edges are seared. So these are
Yeah.
quite thick steaks. So when you're putting them on the barbecue, turn, give it a minute, turn, give it a minute, and then just do the edges around. Again, keeps the juices in, yeah?
Do you want more?
I think
Enough?
this will be
Yeah.
all right.
Okay, you can also throw it on the barbecue like that. Salt and pepper, whole piece if you're feeding a few people on the evening. Salt, pepper on the barbecue, then fan it out nicely on your serving tray.
Yeah.
Lovely. Your guests will be impressed.
Give them a nice marinade on that. We used to use these all the time, and marinating them with a little touch of chipotle.
Yeah.
Again, salt and pepper, and then touch of oil. Let them go in the marinade for about 24 hours, and then dry them all off. Again, hit the barbecue. But like Alison says, just really slice nice and thin. Just great in a taco, in a wrap.
Yeah.
That's beautiful,
For sure.
beautiful.
Absolutely. This is a prize cut. There's so many cuts that you can use. A lot off the bowler blades there. There's a beautiful petite tender on top of the bowler blade, which sits next to this muscle. That is a very, very tender cut. There's also the chuck tender, which is not tender at all, even though that has the name chuck tender. You can use that for different things as well. I've used it in a carpaccio before, where I've marinated it, wrapped it in some Glad wrap and let it soak for 24 hours, sliced it super thin, ate like butter. So these secondary cuts can be used. It's just about being creative and getting the best out of them and seeing what their potential is.
Alison, I noticed that meat's really quite marbled with fat.
Yeah, this is super
Yeah.
marbled. That label was a Jack's Creek.
Jack's Creek.
That's a good brand.
Yeah, yeah.
Victorian. And an oyster blade, the shell oyster blade coming up the end of the oyster blade is heavily marbled. They call that the Ferrari of the oyster blade. It is their best. Very marbled.
Cool. Let me just let these cook away
Is that
and,
a cook?
and do. And
I don't think, are we doing it? No. I don't think we need to do that. There's not really much you can do with it.
so I've got a question,
Yes.
Miss Butcher Girl. What's
Yes.
your favourite piece of beef to eat?
My favourite?
Yeah.
I'm always discovering new things to do with it, and it changes constantly. But the other week I found a cut that sits on top of inside the chuck, which is normally a cut, a primal that you cook for a really long time, low and slow. But I found a muscle inside it called the Sierra, and it sits on top of the Denver steak. And because it's a muscle that sits so far behind in the neck, it's not used that much. And it's about this size. It looks similar to a palm skirt. And oh my gosh, it was sweet, it was tender.
Yeah.
And what did I do with it? I just fried it off and served it with a beautiful olive tapenade. So simple, so good.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's my favourite at the moment.
At
But
the
ask
mo-
me next week, it'll
It's
change.
the
I'll
same,
find something
same,
else.
same.
Yeah.
Like somebody said to me, like, what's your favourite style of food? I went, well, today
Yeah.
it's Italian. You know, tomorrow it's
It might
French.
be something else.
The day after
Yeah.
it's, you know, a fresh piece of stick
Yeah.
fish with a stick up it on the barbecue. You know,
Yeah,
just-
constantly
yeah,
changing.
like every single day. And I think the great thing about what we do, I'm very, very lucky that we get to try a lot of unusual stuff that, you know, is a bit harder for people to get hold of. So I use a lot of indigenous spices and stuff.
Do you?
Yeah, and the guys just come to me and go, oh, we've got this, and, you know, and see what you can do with it. And it's like, we just mess with the flavours, and you're there, you're tasting, you're doing, and it's the same, I suppose, with the cuts of meat.
Yes, that's
You know,
it.
you're just literally getting,
And go, what can I do
what
with
we're
this?
going to do with that?
Yeah.
And then your brain
Yeah.
starts working
Yeah,
overtime and overtime. Yeah.
And that's why I love butchering, because
Yeah.
you can get down into those cuts and then go, what can I do with this? That someone, you know, hasn't been done before.
That's quite a thick
You're
one.
constantly learning in these trades, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've spent, so I started in the kitchen at 14. I'm 15, 6 now. Right, and I'm learning
You
stuff
slurred that.
every
Every
day.
day.
And when I get my trainees and my juniors come in,
Yeah.
because they've seen something on My Kitchen Rules or Master Chef or something like that, and they're going, "Oh, chef, have you tried that?" And I'm like, "No, because I don't watch My Kitchen Rules and Master Chef very often, even though, no, I've got some good mates that were in it." But you just go, "Oh yeah," you know, and then you come up with something, and then their dish ends up on the menu. You know, I love that side of life.
Yes.
You know, when a junior comes at you and says, "Can you do this, chef?" and then you put that dish on the menu and give them the provenance for it as well.
Absolutely.
You know,
It's part of it,
I think,
isn't it?
it's like the provenance of every ingredient. You know, all the farmers and the producers that there are in this country. It's like I want to be able to say, like, I'm using Kilcoy, or I'm using AANT, or I'm using Eva Valley, or so on and so forth.
I think a lot of people are
different.
becoming more and more conscious of where their food's coming from.
Yes.
And the love and the care that goes into raising cattle. And I think that our side of it is to showcase that in its best light.
Absolutely. We've got to give it homage.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like these guys are in the field day after day after
That's
day
right.
after day after
Yeah.
day, struggling something right.
Yeah.
We're just lucky enough to be able to put it on the plate. You know, and
It's a paddock, it's a plate,
It's a
and it's
real
just-
privilege to
It
be
is,
able
it
to.
is, yeah.
to
And
do
last
that
night's
thing.
event showcased that too, the nose to tail.
Yeah,
a lot
I'm
of producers
jealous
in the
of-
room,
yeah.
and they could see how it's done at the very end. So, yeah.
So we're just going to let that one rest. These are a couple.
Yeah,
of
so the
things
resting is
quite
pretty
thick.
important. So how long, Chef, do you recommend resting before you slice it out?
Do you know, I'd have it 5 minutes plus.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when we're doing stuff in the restaurant, we've got the hot trays above the cookers. So the steak gets cooked, but there's no such thing as fast food. You know, we're not Maccas. So it rests and it rests and it rests. And it could be 7, 8, 9 minutes for a 200-gram steak.
Do you wrap it or do you leave it out as
It's so hot up there.
up there? But
Yeah,
at home for the average person?
At home, yeah, I'd foil it over.
Yeah.
You know, because you haven't got the heat. I mean, as daft as it is, I was given 2 beautiful 8-point Wagyu steaks for Christmas a couple of years ago.
Yeah, nice gift.
And my my cooker at home was useless, absolutely useless. So I went out and I bought myself a beautiful barbie, right? And I set it up my Christmas day. There's these 2 beautiful steaks, absolutely really hot sear cooked, and then rested. They were rested for about 15 minutes, in fairness. Just time enough for me to drink a really good bottle of Shiraz. And then we sat and we ate the steaks, and yeah, that was a special Christmas.
And I also think it's important to mention that before we cook our steaks that we leave it out of the refrigerator.
Yeah, it's got to be room
left out.
temperature.
Yeah.
Got to be room
Otherwise,
temperature.
you're cooking with something that's cold and you're not going to get it to temperature. So if you remember those 2 golden things, leave it out of the fridge, let it rest.
You know, like I said before, it's literally if you burn yourself, so if you put your hand on a hot stove. I did it at a function the other week. I was doing a variety club thing, and we went, and I was an induction plate and it wasn't working, and I just tested the pan, and I seared my fingers to the side of the pan. I went, that hurts, but it's that after about an hour, it eased up. So all that tenseness that was there. So by the time I came off stage, it was all back to normality. But you've just got to let skin and flesh rest. All that protein has got to rest back. And like we say, all the juices have got to get in.
Exactly, like a sponge. There we go, people. So that's the oyster blade, and now we're going to carve it up. How do we go? Is that enough? Yep.
Oop, missed. La, 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 la. The other thing when you're chopping at home, you know, if you've got slippy boards and stuff like that, just get a chucks cloth, wet it in the sink, fold it over, put it underneath your board, stops it slipping a bit. So these are this is like an ice skating rink, so we'll make it a bit harder there. So, do we have any more? If just a plate will do fine. If there's one floating around, just because there will be some residual juices in that, because obviously it's not been rested long enough. Okay, yeah.
So, Chef, do you salt and pepper again when you serve it?
I actually prefer not over salty.
Yeah.
You know, It's like people come in the restaurant. It's like first thing they do, they don't taste the food, right? They pick the salt cellar up.
Yeah.
So I threw all the salt cellars out of the kitchen. They're gone.
I have to ask for it.
You know? Yeah. So now people come in and they ask, you know. But it's like, seriously, try the food, give it the homage. Okay. So I was thinking I was going to do doing this at home, you know. So I was just going to use my fingers, but I'm going to try and be correct.
Where'd you get your knife bag? It's pretty cool.
This is Macca. So Macca's down in SA,
yeah.
so he made it for me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So this will be quite nice and red. Look at that.
Whoa, to perfection. How do you hand it around to people? Would anyone like to come up and try?
But if you don't worry, because I've got some bread in the back and I fancy a steak sanger. But just come up this way, and then across the front of the stage, Madame Darling will pass some down to you with the greatest of pleasure.
You're in. Oyster Blade. Have you tried it before? Have you tried it before? Like this, flat iron?
Like that.
Yeah, okay, beautiful, good. Do it. It's the second most tender.
Lola, can you do me a favour?
And it's way more flavoursome than that
Can you do me a favour? Can you
tenderloin.
just grab me
Like this,
a
at least
small
this has got
plate
flavour, it's
down
not
there?
just tender.
Either that or that one just down
I
onto
should have
the
mentioned
left.
that. There you go.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Enjoy.
More than welcome.
Can I nick one for my wife?
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, that old excuse. Okay, so this is going to be for this lady that's just down.
I'll take it down.
Thanks.
You're right with that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Mind handing that to that
beautiful,
lady.
mate.
Yep.
Can you cut one of those in half and just take it back to my mate? Thank you very much.
Oh, don't touch the board, sir. Otherwise, I'll get shot by the COVID police. You're all right on that one. So much marbling in this.
Can I try, Chef?
Yeah. It's your meat.
Oh, God, that's good.
Yeah,
That is
go for
really
it.
good. Well cooked.
Thank you.
Salt, pepper, enough. How much percentage of salt and pepper do you use, you know?
Oh,
Just whatever you
eyesight.
reckon.
It's like 40 years of burning stuff in a kitchen. You know, it's just by eyesight. If you think it's all right.
Gosh,
I don't
that's
think you can over salt when it's hitting a barbecue because it's.
And is there a particular salt that you use?
Well, I should say Alson's. Right? I love Alson salt, so they look after me and send me some stuff up every now and then. There you go, guys.
So you said the right thing.
So they're brilliant, you know. And you can get different flavours as well. So they make so many different flavours of salt. But I like fleur de lis, you know.
Yep.
I like Spanish salt. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time in Spain, so I use a lot of their salt. Enjoy, my darling.
2? You want
How
another
many?
one now?
4.
She needs 4.
So you're
Lovely.
super hungry, aren't you?
How are you going to carry it? Do you need a napkin?
Well, there was some left for you guys, but this young lady's taking it all. So. Let's put that over there. Alrighty. You're welcome, love.
Oh, look at the girls in their hats. They're so cute.
Hey guys, how are you?
Where'd you get your hats? From here?
You having a good day? Enjoying it?
Good.
Seen lots? Yeah. There you go, lovely people. How's that? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Enough for a steak sandwich?
For you. I'm about metered out.
All right.
Okay then, thank you very much folks for coming along and finding out how, and Alison breaking down an oyster blade. I'm sure you've all appreciated that. And thank you also to Martin for cooking the meat beautifully. I hope you've enjoyed your taste. Thank you very much, and we're back here tomorrow. Different chefs. I believe 10:30 a.m.
Yeah.
So in the
You've done that
morning,
before, though.
if any of you are hanging
let's
around
take that
or
photo.
wish to
On a-
come back.
on a charred
Thank you
grill,
very much for coming.
650 degrees.